Jamie. This is Dead Dodge Garage, and this stinky pile is my 1981 Dodge Challenger, which is really just a Mitsubishi. Well, it's getting happier. Well, it was. You may recall in the last video, I put it to the viewers whether I should do more with this car or not. A few of you will be devastated to hear that the vast majority, like I want to say 98.5% of comments said, yes, please do more with that car. It's awesome. I agree. It is awesome. Sometimes. I think I just confirmed that's a jet valve problem. Anyway, more on that later. You know, I never had problems with this before, but for some reason it's killing batteries now. I don't know if it's because I fixed the door jamb switch, or if it's because I'm kind of stupid and I was leaving the key in accessory position. At the end of the last video, I mentioned that it needed several things done. Clogged cat. That's a problem. A bunch of you said, delete the cat. I would never tell anyone to do that. That's illegal and wrong. So I'm gonna fix this one. Also, there's a bunch of air caught in the brakes. And there's no friction material left on the rear brake shoes. Now, many of you have pointed out that these are available on Rock Auto, and I'm gonna be ordering a set, but I haven't done that yet. I also need to order like an entire front end's worth of rebuild parts. Oh, maybe wait to do that till the brakes are fixed. Clogged exhaust. A mild carburetor tuning issue. Many of you told me to adjust the idle circuits. As if I hadn't thought of that. I already did like 5 times.
Staff at salvationhistory.com. Or
it works!
At 740-264.
What was I saying? On today's episode, I'm gonna do 3 things. 1, hopefully fix the squishy brake pedal. 2, do something with the exhaust. And 3, license plates? In the last video, I made it a major point to explain that I will not be V8 swapping this car. This car's existence in my life is, let's say, tenuous and maybe temporary. I really like it, and I have some big ideas for it, but none of them involve the amount of work it would take to put a V8 in here. That's not to say that if you have one of these, you shouldn't. In fact, it would be really, really awesome. But I'm kind of spoiled for choice when it comes to rear-wheel drive V8 cars, so yeah, I don't need any more of them. My vision for this car is now and will always be 4-cylinder based. In fact, let me narrow that down. 4-cylinder Mitsubishi based, because that's what belongs in here. Many people want to see me do a turbo K-car engine. Many people want to see me do an SRT4 swap. I have intentions of doing both of those things, but not in this car. To me, this car is a rear-wheel drive 4-cylinder Mitsubishi. The vast majority of commenters, as I mentioned, love seeing this thing. The people that dislike it, strongly dislike it. And the reason they dislike it is that Challenger name they slapped on this car. Honestly, I'm inclined to agree. I desperately wish they'd named it something else, but they didn't. They called it Challenger. So while I have thought about renaming it, you know, the 1981 Dodge Krusty comes to mind, I've decided to fix the problem with a pair of these. That way, when I tell people that I daily drive a Challenger, either way, it's still true. 4 things. I'm going to do 4 things in this video. Gotta wash it. Yesterday, a commenter with the handle Coronet777 told me that he had read-throughs of a Sapporo and a Dodge import brochure on his channel. I hopped over to listen to the one for the 1983 Plymouth Sapporo, and it was very entertaining. In that video, I learned that Sapporos were slightly upscale from the Challenger. They had standard door pockets, which this thing does not have, and they had slide-out trays under the front seats. They also had adjustable hip support, which the Challenger does not have. I charged up the first teeny tiny battery that this car killed and threw it back in the car. Before I connect it, I am going to do a draw test. This is a Fluke multimeter that I bought way back when I was a real mechanic and I could justify that sort of thing. To do this draw test, I'm going to flip this positive lead over to the A terminal. I believe that can handle, a 10 amp load. This test is performed with the key off, all accessories off, and the doors closed. This can be a little more complicated on newer vehicles because they have 20,000 computers that stay on. But on an old thing like this, it's pretty straightforward. The negative terminal is disconnected. The cables are connected like so, with negative on the battery negative post and positive on the battery negative cable. The meter is then switched to DC amp. And as you can see, I'm showing 0.845 amps on the meter. When I open the door, which of course would light up the interior lights, that draw goes up to 1.6 amps. Still well under the 10 that the meter can handle. In the last video, I had found that the reason the dome light didn't work was because the switch was secured in the fully in position using a zip tie. So I'm gonna do that with my thumb and look at my meter. The reading's exactly the same. Okay. Dude, I left those lights on after filming last time. Okay. Now it's 0.005 or 6-ish. Is that 5 milliamps? I don't know. The point is it's very little. So yeah, I'm just an idiot. I had also left the key in accessory mode. I've done that now. This is with the door jamb switch closed, and it's 0.1 amps. That'll kill a battery over, well, some days. Not immediately. So if you don't leave things on in the car, you probably won't kill your battery. What a lesson. Now, as you may know, I've been lucky enough in life to collect multiple lifts in my leak-prone, freezing cold automotive repair shop here. Unfortunately, because I'm still me, they're all covered in various projects that are in pieces and cannot be moved. Oh yeah, by the way, a bunch of stuff changed in the shop. Depending on what video comes out when, you may not have seen that yet. It's a big improvement. I'd really like to fix the exhaust system on this car today. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to do that the hard way, in the mud and gravel. Well, it is a really tiny car. I could probably fit it like here. Did you know that I ran a professional automotive repair shop for almost 7 years with 0 lifts? And we were always working in the driveway and doing dumb stuff like this. Ah, memories. Oh yeah, I really want to put cool wheels on this thing. I don't know if I'll have any luck finding cool wheels. So I think I'm gonna have to paint these ones. My options are silver, black, or dark gold. Let me know which one you think I should choose. You know, it's not just the catalytic converter. This entire system is total garbage. It actually has a resonator in the front and then a muffler at the very back. When all of that was not garbage, this thing probably would have been very quiet. I managed to convince the USPS fleet manager to help me bleed the brakes while I was here, and there were pretty massive bubbles left here on the right side. I think it's better. Might not be 100%, but it's gotta be better. Oh yeah, it's definitely better. But there's still an air bubble somewhere. Mother Nature pretty much already did the rear muffler delete. Kind of just finishing the job by popping these funky rubber mounts off. It's like a butterfly looking thing. It's 2 rubber rings that hook on these metal pieces on the car. I'll probably save those for the new system if it actually ends up going this far back anyway. I actually do kind of enjoy quiet exhaust. I want this thing to sound cool, but not ridiculous. So I probably will have a tailpipe. I was gonna drag the Sawzall out here, but metal fatigue works. Ooh, metal fatigue is pokey. Come on. Dumping this thing removed the horrible buffeting sounds, but it didn't make it any louder because, of course, the exhaust is still half clogged. Okay, well, I don't know how that worked, but it did. I took all the hardware just coming right off as a good sign, but for some reason, these flanges are like rusted together at the top, and they will not come apart the rest of the way. I've beaten them savagely with a hammer. It hasn't helped yet. That was way harder than it ever should have been. Might be a little rich. Notice, although it sounds better, it's still not particularly loud with that cat in place. Let's pull it down and see what's what. Oh, this can also be a fun game. Let's see what we got. Yeah. Lots of cool stuff. Mostly rust though. This resonator is actually packed full of crap. Oftentimes with the disintegrating cat, you will see that, but I don't think that's what this is. This is just, I don't know, flakes of carbon and nightmares. It actually had fancy springs and nuts and washers holding the cat onto the manifold. That's pretty common nowadays. Anyway, it's loose. It's also heavy. It's also hot. I know that'll come as a shock. It's hardly at all warm at this end. And that can be a really good sign that you've got an issue. All right, everybody hold your breath. Well, it's not disintegrating as I'd kind of assumed. I can't see anything. Oh, I take that back. I just had to shake it. Yeah, it's disintegrating. There are little bits of cat coming out, which is what I expected. It's actually not in too bad a shape, but it is clogged solid. I can't see any light going through this cat whatsoever. Does this thing have two cats? Is there another one here bolted on the manifold? You know, that's common these days, but again, in the early 80s, not so much, at least that I'm aware of. Yes, that is a second cat. I think for science, we got to start it up with just the one still in place. There is no question at all this thing is now running much better. The exhaust is obviously freer flowing. It's way more responsive. I'm still pretty sure there's something wrong with this. Now you may be wondering how I'm going to solve this little issue. I'll tell you, I went looking for tubular headers for this thing. I would love to. Why was only one of those 11 millimeter, 12 millimeter, whatever? One was different. Why? As I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted, I went looking for a tubular header. I would love to put a header on this thing. I have some other performance modifications in mind, and that would be a great help toward that end. However, they don't seem to exist. Wow. You know, that kind of looks like a header already. Now there is a turbo header available, and that is of great interest to me, but not at present. I really want to push the limits of this thing naturally aspirated. Steady. Oh, it didn't just fall. I thought it was going to just fall. Oh, right. EGR pipe, or air injection pipe, or something. This might seem odd to some parties, but I actually have a great interest in making some quote-unquote horsepower with this engine without screwing a turbo onto it. A turbo would make the process pretty easy. You know, Mitsubishi did that themselves not long after this car was made. I have no doubt that various parties will be very confused and possibly infuriated by my desire to make some naturally aspirated horsepower out of this engine. The sorts of people that commented on the last video to say that they worked on these things in the 80s and they were hopelessly gutless turds, for example. And I understand that. My question to those people is, well, did you ever try to slightly remove the smog pieces? Did you ever port the head? Did you ever delete the balance shafts? Did you ever delete the jet valves and change carburetor and like actually try to make some horsepower? I don't think you did. This is a Hemi head, and this engine has potential. I'd like to go looking for it. And the great thing about that is, even if you don't have one of these things, the things that I do to this car could well apply to yours. It could be a great learning experience for all of us. It could be a disaster, but I'm okay with that too. Hey, I don't think that should do that. Like, gas shouldn't just come pouring out of places. Pay attention to that. That might be important. Well, that's interesting. This one is actually not so bad. I don't know what to think of that exactly. I do know we have to find out what it sounds like with no cat at all. I have a guess. Terrible. So we've learned two things. First, this carb is currently critically rich, which is definitely part of the problem here. Second, this engine sounds absolutely horrible with an open manifold. Third, that cat and the resonator are all full of debris, and that's our real issue. I thought I said we only learned two things. Having found no major issues with the front catalytic converter, I simply gave it a thorough cleaning and reinstalled it, violating no federal laws or local exhaust regulations. I did delete the heat shields, because race car. Not that this is a race car. Oh, that reminds me, a couple people told me I should race lemons with this thing, which would be great, but we actually have a way cooler car in mind for that. I'm off to the store to get some exhaust pieces to replace all of this horribleness. Also, I'm out of welding gas. Also, I guess I'll go ahead and handle that whole making the car legal thing. Seems like a good idea. Did you know that you could just go to the parts store and buy a complete exhaust system for a 1981 Dodge Challenger? Man, there's just nothing like driving around town in circles and spending money. Anyway, the good news is the Challenger now legally belongs to me. I have an exhaust system and welding gas. And all of that only cost me like $500. Yay! Speaking of spending money, I just put in an $82 Rock Auto order. Tie rod ends, lower ball joints, rear brake shoes. All much needed. Couldn't find a driveline center support bushing. I might have to like make one of those. Anyway, back to the exhaust fun. I've got my downward section from the cat set up and I'm ready to add a pipe and then a muffler. You'll notice I did not get enough pieces to do an axle bend. Thing is, the local parts store only had like 2 of these. I would have needed at least 3 to do that, and I didn't have any 90-degree bends, so. Anyway, for now, I'm gonna do a straight section, probably like half of this 7-foot chunk, and then a muffler, then a shorter piece, a turn, and an even shorter piece that hopefully gets out in front of the rear tire. In the future, I'd really like a tailpipe section. In the future, I might not even want this muffler. I just kind of need one for now. So that's what we're doing. I am going to try and incorporate at least one of these factory mounts. Well, this might not work out quite as well as I thought it would because ground clearance. There's actually a chunk in the floor that little resonator fit up in. Because I got the gigantic glass pack, that's not going to happen. It would fit conveniently at the very back of the car, but again, I don't have enough bends to get there. So I think I'm going to try this, and when it scrapes on the ground and explodes into a bunch of little pieces, I'll get another one and some more bends. I don't know how I ever got major projects done without a stolen portaband. This thing is great. I should probably have 2 hands on it though. Oh, yeah. Of course, if my chop saw was working, I probably could actually cut these things straight. Yeah, it might work. All right. Gonna have to do a little denting. I'm gonna pull the whole thing down and fully weld it. Exhaust system. No, you can't see the welds up close. They are absolutely terrible. Once I realized I had the gas pressure several pounds too high on that, they cleaned up a little bit, but kind of too little too late. Anyway, I beat this section with a hammer because it's got to clear this suspension mount here, and that section has to go under a heat shield and a chunk of the rear floor. I think we're good. Still got to do the stylized angle cut on the tailpipe. Then I'm going to install this, weld on 1, maybe 2 mounts, and we'll see what it sounds like. In all likelihood, terrible. The days are just too short this time of year. Original mid-mount that hung on those 2 rubber pieces and bolted to the exhaust pipe. Fancy new extendo cock mount, which will hopefully be long enough to reach under the pipe. Mounts mounted. The factory one in the middle ended up attaching to the muffler there, and my remade one came right here to the tailpipe section. This is hanging about 3/8 of an inch under that piece. If this exhaust bounces around, it's gonna do that, which is not very ideal. For now, I'm gonna let it ride. Okay, it's on the ground, and that looks pretty good. I regret not making that exhaust pipe like 3 inches longer, so it stuck out past the body. Kind of awesome. Okay. Yeah, it just does that. I think the choke isn't opening enough when it first cold starts. That's probably something I could adjust. Okay. Oh, also, I don't know how much gas is left in this thing. Yeah, it sounds a little too Honda for my liking. Of course, I'm parked next to a metal building and all the sound's bouncing off that, so maybe it'll be better on the road. I'm sure you'll have noticed the funky idle. Kind of sounds like a Lopi cam. I need to deal with that. I actually think this mechanical pump is overpressurizing this Weber carb, which is what's leading to the little bit of fuel dribbling out of the main circuits. Thing is, though, it sounds awesome. So it'll be a shame to fix that, but I do need to. I'm ready to go annoy innocent people around town with this thing. But first, I need to make it official and screw the license plates on there. With license plate screws that I don't have for some reason. Alan, buy license plate screws. It's like a front license plate. that subtle, is it? The fourth thing I'm gonna do, or is it fifth, or is it seventh? I don't know. I'm gonna go put fresh fuel in it. I'm gonna get fancy and put premium in it. It's not amazing by any means. It's no longer cutting out and sputtering at the top end like it was. It's a definite improvement. There's a good bit more power. But this Weber is not happy. I'd like to get fuel. Can I get fuel? I don't know, we'll see. Ooh, there we go. Too easy. Put $30 in premium in it. Probably gonna confuse it, honestly. All right, let's drive it around town, shake up the fuel tank, and see if it gets any better. I'm holding my breath. Of course, it's like the busy time of the night. Remind me to fix the column. Okay, right now, it's running awesome. Kind of. 98,444.9 miles. This is definitely the furthest it's driven in a very long time. Maybe I'm not buying one of these. All right, I gotta get this fuel system thing figured out, because I'll tell you, other than the idling like crap, starting like crap, and occasionally like being all choppy and crappy, this thing is fun. It's ridiculously fun. Settles into a nice cruise. Just going down the road, 30 mile an hour, third gear. Not bad at all. It's just demented. It's got a mind of its own. It idles up, it idles down, it tries to die, it runs awesome. Cylinders go away, they come back. Let's try and fix this dribbling fuel issue and see if that solves it. There was much discussion in the comments on the last video about carburation fuel supply possibilities. A lot of people obviously want to see a turbo screwed to this thing, and I want to see that too. If I were not to install a turbo, the ultimate carburation option, that would be dual side drafts. These were originally made by Mikuni, they're now made by Weber. They have individual little trumpets. It's the coolest looking thing ever. Now, a pair of them is something in the $350, $400 neighborhood, so I can't say I'm excited to spend all that, especially when, if this Weber would actually work right, it would be pretty great too. But it actually gets worse than that, because of course, I need an intake that actually fits the carburetors, and that costs something like $520 Australian, plus freight. So I'm not exactly ready to run out and do that. Oh, it would be so cool though. It would be insanely cool. Until such a time as I'm ready to dump that much money into this pile, we're gonna have to live with one of these Webers. Now, I know carb mounting hardware is supposed to be tight, but is it supposed to be tight? Asking for a friend. I think I ordered a mechanical pump for this, but then it probably went back, just like the carb kit for the Studebaker. It's been a recurring theme lately. I'm gonna pull the top plate off of this one without actually removing it from the car, because that is a humongous pain. And then I'm gonna open up the 3236 and we'll take a look at these components in both of them. Oh, also, at some point, it would be nice to learn how to tune these things. Pretty sure this thing needs less accelerator pump fuel, and probably less main fuel, just less fuel everywhere. Now, of course, I've already had this open within the last couple weeks, so hopefully this top plate will come right off and the gasket will continue winning with us. I noticed the power steering is a little funky in this thing. Remind me to check the fluid. These cars actually have gearbox steering. I don't know why. Really should be rack and pinion, because tiny import car. There we go. Yeah, still looking pretty good in there, actually. I was talking about tuning there. Obviously, the main circuits are tuned by changing the main jets. There are tunable air bleeds here, and then there is some kind of power valve in this thing, the piston for which is in the lid. I'm gonna open the other carb and take a look. Now, I'll remind you, this thing actually ran okay with this carburetor. The big issue was there was no accelerator pump, so it had this horrible hesitation. This probably won't come as a giant surprise or anything, but it's full of sludge. Comparing the top plates now, I thought about trying to just swap between them, since this one seemed to work really well and this one I'm not so sure. But of course, this one has 2 accelerator pump nozzles. This one does not, because this is from a progressive carb. So that won't work. Now this one has brass floats, and they appear to still be floaty. That's cool. This one has the nitrofill style. This one also has a spring on the needle, in the needle and seat setup there. Interestingly enough, it looks like they're actually adjusted lower. And yet, I'm seeing dripping fuel out of the main circuits. Anyway, my genius idea here is to try the brass ones and see if that makes any difference. These are the main jets. Now again, that one's gone forever. This is a progressive carb. So the front one, which I just lost, is a 140. And this one I think is a 155. Now if I wanted to swap these jets into the other carburetor, that's not really going to work because they are staggered. The other one is going to have symmetrical jetting. Okay, and just so you know, that wasn't a bit. I actually cannot find that jet, which may be a problem. I did happen to find a 10mm socket under my box that's been lost forever. No, I'm not joking. Yes, I agree that joke's getting old. Anyway, guess I'm short a Weber jet now. Just kidding. This is kind of funny. Just a few minutes ago, I had a comment that said, "You need to put a fresh fuel filter on there. Your new carburetor's getting filled with gunk." No, it's not. It actually looks really good in there. Would you? Okay, I need more hands. I had another comment that said, "You need to change the jets in that carburetor because it's still got the jets for the slant 6. They're 155s. Same as the secondary side of the progressive carb I took off, so no. Tell you what though, I do think this is too much main fuel. I can't change both jets, but I can change one. I think it's a common plenum. We'll lean out the front holes, but not the rear holes. Maybe. Anyway, I'm going to give it a shot, see if it likes it. Let it be noted that the jets out of the progressive carb have a little dingus on the end, while the ones I took out of this one were flat. I think it's fine, just a little design difference. Okay, this could be a problem. This idle air bleed, perfectly clear. This one is clogged solid and I can't spray through it. So now I'm going to have to get some little chunk of wire or something and clean that out. I gave my wire brush a tiny haircut. That ought to work. That's just gross. Chunks coming out and it's seriously like packed solid. All right, this could take a minute. So the good thing about getting brake clean in your eyes is it evaporates really fast. Anyway, I don't know what's in there. It resisted all attempts with the wire. I went and got the world's tiniest screwdriver and I did get some chunks out, but it is still clogged solid. Unfortunately, I recently changed my air compressor situation and I can't get a hose to where this thing is sitting. Why? Just why? Always. Every time. I did something dumb, but I think the air hose now reaches, which is good because I'm making no headway with the wire thing. And what we want to see is a little free willy spout out of that air bleed, along with whatever chunks are in there. No luck yet. One forever later, I think we're good. Maybe. You know, I've always figured cancer would get me eventually, but maybe it'll be some horrible infection. Oh, I just discovered a problem that I might have created. Notice here, this thing has some orifices drilled in it. This had an external bowl vent. Now this carburetor didn't. I didn't have any connection for that, so I figured, what the heck? I'll just cap it. Well, do you see that epoxy in there? That is covering what would have been the normal bowl vent. So there's no vent to the atmosphere for the fuel bowl, and that can't be good. Well, I fixed that problem with a drill. I'm gonna slap this back together with the brass float. It does seem to work. It's not all full of fuel, and maybe this had something to do with the dripping, but maybe not. And I know this setup works, so I'm just gonna swap that onto this top plate, put it back together, and make horrible, obnoxious glassback 4-cylinder noises again. All right, it's super late, but I got it back together, so let's see what happens. Kind of crazy, it actually started with no fuel in the bowl. So it's just perfect now. Okay, well, no more dribbling fuel, but it actually still runs terrible. Now it's almost like the accelerator pump isn't working. Which, if you'll recall, was the problem with the last one. How could it be better and worse? Anyway, I'm gonna test drive it for science. If it'll stay running. Okay, and it's super bucky. Below 2,000 RPM. The heater might actually work once this thing gets warm again. Okay, well. Is the power at least unlimited? If so, it'll all be worth it. pretty good, if I'm honest. It does make some interesting noises, you know, shooting fireballs and everything. That's pretty great. Yeah, it just won't. All right. It's not bad. This thing's got a red line on the tach at 6,000 RPM. It runs out of poop around 5 right now. The major problems that it had at the end of the last video are gone. Now I'm in an interesting place of strange tuning problems with carburetors I hardly understand. You know what? That's probably a lean surge because I put that tiny jet in there. I have every intention of making some actual powered mods to this thing. Camshaft, balance shaft delete, importing the head. Also jet valve delete, probably. Although I've heard there's actually a way to use them to your advantage to make extra horsepower. I gotta get through this tuning stuff first. Gotta get a good baseline established, you know? It almost idled. More on that later. Oh, turn the key off too, that would be good. Sun's out. Well, it was. And it's shining on all of us. Particularly this fantastic heap of scrap metal, which is getting a much needed bath. Wow. So shiny. So blue. It might look okay in places. I don't remember who, but some clever commenter said this car is a member of the Scrap Pack. That would make a great t-shirt. Also, a car club. I'm sure this will come as a great shock to any classic hardtop owner, but these windows do not seal to each other, so I'm having to be careful around that area. Also, it makes obnoxious wind noises, so I'd really like to fix that. Did you know I'm a car washing expert? All right, you ready for your big reveal? Yeah, it looks the same, but cleaner. Have you noticed that I strategically always use the passenger side for the glory shots on this car? Big brain stuff. I'm pretty pleased with this. Not how it sounds at all, but with the look. It's pretty cool. It could have stuck out another inch, but that's okay. Dude, I missed the entire passenger side rocker. What an embarrassment. I'm not gonna stand here and lie to you and tell you that this car now magically looks good. It doesn't. Funny enough, this thing cold started perfectly today. It's just everything after a cold start that's bad. Oh, also a bath under the hood, desperately required, but that's not a Today Jamie thing. It's kind of acting like there's a vacuum leak. There may well be. I'm completely blind. I don't know if the heater actually heats. It blows. I know there are a good few viewers out there that are not excited to see more of the 1981 Dodge Challenger. I just hope those viewers understand that this is my second most popular project of all time. Right behind the Turbo Slant 6, in fact. As many commenters pointed out, this is unique on YouTube. There aren't many people building and hooning these things. Most of them went in the scrap bin, like 35 years ago, and there's a reason for that. If you don't like this car, don't worry. There are plenty more classic Mopar projects coming to the channel all the time. I don't plan to work exclusively on 80s things and K cars and that sort of stuff. People get excited to see them, but my real love, that's classic Mopars. However, I'm gonna have some fun with this thing, especially because, at least to this point, it's basically been free. It's good fun. It might stay running, maybe. Oh look, free tires. This car is not valuable. It's very attainable, and it's relatable to other cheap pieces of garbage from the 80s. Also, I hate it. I didn't scrape the stickers off the exhaust components, and I can smell them being removed the fun way now. Also, it's really pretty here this evening. Aside from the garbage, of course. No, I don't mean the 1981 Dodge Challenger. It's a two-door hardtop, rear-wheel drive, with a stick transmission and a Hemi. Come on, cool's the wrong word. It's interesting. I stand by that. I forgot. This thing desperately needs a thermostat. Maybe I'll change that when I put the side draft intake on it. Just imagine it. 4 shiny chrome trumpets under the hood of this ridiculous thing from the 80s. Now, I would be lying to your face if I said this idea of like hot rodding something unlikely or having fun with an oddball car was completely original. So I've got to give credit where credit is due. Yeah, that's right. I bought these stickers from the Uncle Tony like 4 years ago. They were supposed to go on a drag racing dart project that I ended up giving up on. They've been sitting in my little display cabinet ever since, waiting for the perfect car to put them on. Well, this is it. Low buck or no buck fun. Cheap thrills and hot garbage. That's what's going on here. I like it. Hopefully you do too. Also powered by crap. So that's where we're at with that. Next on the docket, drivability stuff. The much needed rear brake repair, tie rod ends, ball joints, etc. Wheels and tires, interior detail job, keys, all that and more to come. Until then, as ever, thank you very much for watching. And remember that. Cat.